So thank you very much. I think we are greatly honored also as one of the few non-Syrian speakers to be invited to this conference. It's a sign of confidence that you invite us. And myself have been in contact with Syria for many years, also with my family, and I was strongly touched by the situation. And from my background, I'm also the coordinator and one of the coordinators of the World Psychiatric Association section on sequels to persecution, torture, and so on, and European Union projects in the area. So whenever you need something here, we can mobilize the experts you need to collaborate if you are interested. Yeah, we are all aware about the situation in Syria, and we really want to support it. I'm aware that we had a fantastic conference. We have a fantastic conference. I was very impressed with this morning. Best overview, we know that Syria always has been a leader also in many areas in the region, including mental health, historically also present, and you could see in the morning meetings, the broad range of fantastic projects. Yeah, I've been in this field for 30 years now, starting with before Bosnia already, and I think I can say also for our section, the World Psychiatric Association, the range of projects and the inclusion, the complexity of the projects you have been presenting in this conference is really excellent. So we are very impressed, and I think whatever comes from this horrible situation also brings the benefit that Syrians have become real world-leading experts in how to run complex psychosocial mental health projects in war regions. I think that's one of the real benefits in spite of all the problems that are ongoing. So today, as mentioned, we work now in some areas. In the beginning, when there's a war, when there's a humanitarian catastrophe, you need more things like safety, like food, medication, but very soon other aspects become important too, and you realize that this humanitarian catastrophe is also a human rights catastrophe, and of course a catastrophe for civil society and rule of law in a country that is highly developed and has a long history. Just mention the ideas I will present now are in our book that is just coming out for the World Psychiatric Association next month. So you can read it up if you're interested. And I think the quality of the presentations here, please think about publishing them. I think you have developed a unique package of international projects in regard to Syria. And it would be a great idea to publish the results of all these projects that were presented in this meeting. And I can also willing to link you with Springer or other organizations, so you might have even better connections already. So for me, we have long-standing links with my family to Syria out of many reasons, and I have a painting of a long-standing friend who has unfortunately died, a Syrian painter. And this is to remind you also that myself, everyone, that Syria is also about art. I think Syrian modern art is the best in the Near East. There's no other country that is so far advanced in modern art. And I hope we can, in spite of the war, also think about keeping, protecting, and if necessary, reconstructing the rich cultural scene of Syria, even if it's in exile. This is a painting about a vision by Fatih al-Mudares. He's a friend of my family, and we have a number of paintings by him. And one is in front of my working table. Yeah. So I am reminded daily about Syria. And so we have been thinking, what can we do from our work, from our experience, from our projects of the last decades? How can we best support? And we are specialized. There are enough projects already on psychotherapy and similar issues. And now we think when the first crisis and needs and medication and services have been covered, we have to look in the human rights aspects that are always interdisciplinary. There's also, I've seen you are interdisciplinary. Closer to the microphone, that's better. Thank you. Please keep me reminding. So we have to work interdisciplinary. Also, we present today our interdisciplinary team in regard to medical documentation. It's a lawyer, Ms. Wittek, you have heard already, and ambassador. our ambassador who has long-standing experience also negotiating for UN and other bodies in war situations starting in Bosnia. So we work interdisciplinary, we see you do it too. I think that's the best approach. So how can we use medical evidence? Because now we speak about the use of medical evidence. Usually we think about medical interventions, and usually in our medical curricula, we are not trained to do forensic examination properly. And that means properly means that it's stable, it's standardized, and it can be used by a court. We want to write a report that is good for treatment. This patient is suicidal, he needs this form of psychotherapy, this medication. When we look into evidence, we speak about forensic examination, and that has different priorities, and you need different standards. You can use it in local courts, not at the moment maybe. In other countries it's possible, but later you might bring the cases of what has happened now to court if the situation changes. And it looks very bad at the moment, but still we know from many countries, for some time it looks very bad. But later, like now, for example, in South America, we did a lot of projects where we had good impact, not immediately, but also on the long-term level, when people can start asking for justice, for recompensation, for reparation. But you have to do the documentation now, because if you do it in 20 years, it's too late. So whatever you have, also if you need it later in a local court, you have to start doing it now. Maybe not in the immediate crisis, so we did it. We had, for example, torture cases of Syrians who were tortured in Bulgaria in transit. I think the morning there was a study on people on the Balkan route, and many of them were tortured. Maybe not even in Syria, but on the transit. And we brought it to authorities, and there was a court case on it. And we documented it immediately, so it can work if the framework is developing. You need independent investigations. That's a key point in the Istanbul Protocol. You cannot ask the police to examine itself, and they have probably tortured someone or soldiers. We had the same in the UK when I worked with the Ministry of Defense on the soldiers and possible cases of torture. We need an external investigation team, and this is also what is in the Istanbul Protocol. How do you create such an independent investigation team? Because you cannot ask the Secret Service to examine itself, obviously. We need international monitoring by the UN CAT in regard to torture, just as torture taking as example for typical severe human rights violations. The Special Rapporteur on Torture, there are international bodies who need the information that is reliable, that is proof, that is not just a normal medical report, yes, he is sick, but you need a very strong forensic documentation that is part of evidence preservation. That's very important. You can use it in the media, and you can, of course, use all sorts of nice pictures, but you can also use very hard data that are also scientifically evidence-based to document what is going on in the country and raise a cry in the international community, because else it's always said it's only political and people want to make you weep and so on, but if you have hard medical data, it's much stronger. You can go to international courts, you can go to asylum cases. It's very important if people are seeking asylum. I do it on nearly 5-6 cases every week, to have evidence that a person was tortured. Should give him protection according to UN, the Article 3 in the UN Convention Against Torture, a protection against being sent back. It's now increasingly violated, also Austria or Germany sometimes, but it's a standard that cannot be abrogated. This is UN Convention Against Torture is valid under any circumstances, and there is no excuse. National emergency doesn't count. This is a human rights standard that is beyond any discussion. You need access to full rehabilitation. This is also long-term a very important thing. If someone has been tortured, and similar things should also work for other human rights violations, he has a right to full rehabilitation. That means medical, psychological, but also social and legal rehabilitation. And what we work now on, especially, is a universal jurisdiction. You will see in the Economist in February, there's a German project, and this is what we are doing now in our section and with our networks, universal jurisdiction. That means if we cannot go to Syria and put someone in court, a perpetrator, but we can at least make him an international pariah. Yeah, we can say if this person is somewhere else in Europe, and if the general prosecutor has accepted medical evidence that people have been tortured, then any representative of the Syrian government could be arrested, at least theoretically, and has worked already in cases in other countries like with Pinochet. So this is at the moment a big important development that is coming up, that we can say we can isolate these people. They are still in power in their country, but they are not in power and they are pariahs internationally. And if we have evidence, and a lot of that can be medical, then we have something that can be used and makes the strategy efficient. The strategies for documentation should be standardized, because else you can circumvent it. We have that problem in Mexico with the Istanbul Protocol. They need to be supported by independent umbrella organizations. Everyone has to support it, World Psychiatric Association, World Medical Association. They need to be integrated in regard to interdisciplinary. We have to teach the medical and the psychiatrists to write in the right form that the lawyers can use it in court, and the other way around. Yeah, the lawyers have to understand how medical people work and what can you demonstrate, how can you prevent secondary victimization, re-traumatization by a legal process. This is extremely important, it's key points in the Istanbul Protocol, and we have to work closely together and communicate all the time. In my time as a medical director of the International Rehabilitation Council for Torture Survivors, we always went to any mission with a lawyer, with a medical and a psychiatrist. So it was normal that we do assessment. And the same is when you see the UN Committee Against Torture does prison visits, it usually does at least a medical doctor and a lawyer that does the prison visits. And the thing that is still missing is a psychiatrist or psychologist. I think they should be part of the team, but it's a financial problem. So the Istanbul Protocol and the Minnesota Protocol, who is aware of the Istanbul Protocol? Who knows it? Interesting, yeah, you know the core group? Yes. Oh, that's good. Yeah. So it was developed originally starting with Turkey and the Human Rights Foundation of Turkey together with the Physicians for Human Rights USA, and we are now with the United Nations developing a supplement to update the Istanbul Protocol to explain what has happened since the original protocol was started, but it's still valid. It's only a supplement. There's not a new protocol, it's only some explanation to go with the protocol. And that should come out, and we want to include these universal jurisdiction cases and similar questions. The Minnesota Protocol, if you ever see, this is about forensic examination of people who are dead. It's forensic, and it's similar like and older like the Istanbul Protocol. Most torture survivors are not recognized. This is a study by Eisenman. Even in a general medical setting, we had in a one group, not Syrians, 8 of 120 who were tortured, and none was recognized by the general practitioner. So it's also about recognition of torture, so it's not only about the forensic importance, it can also be very important to recognize a person and its physical and psychological needs in regard to torture rehabilitation, because most general doctors are not trained to recognize it. Also, many victims are not aware they have been tortured. They think you have in prison, it's normal that you are beaten, it's normal that you are mistreated, and so it's nothing special. Yeah? And still the impact is the same, but they don't know how to mention it, how to process it, how to talk to other people about it. There's shame, there's guilt, surviving guilt feeling, so there are a lot of problems you have when you work in that area. And because of time restrictions, this is a workshop we do between 2 hours and 1 week. So if there's any interest, we can, of course, do it at any time, also together with our Turkish colleagues who are part of the core team. So how should it go in practice? Yeah, when we have an emergency, you don't have, the general doctor has to do treatment mainly. He's not a trained forensic expert. So in the basic level, we have to look into recognize this is a torture survivor or someone victim of similar violations, and something must be done. That's step number 1. And what you should do, even if you're a psychiatrist, you should take, when there are no other options, basic documentation of injuries that vanish rapidly. Yeah, like hematomas, yeah, when you have them, if you see them 2 months later, they are away. So you take a picture immediately. That's very important. Even if you do it with your cell phone, what you see here is a forensic ruler. Yeah? You can download it and you get better pictures because you have the size of the injury and you have the color of the injury in comparison. And this is very easy. And we are, as psychiatrists, not used to do it. But in many situations, if there's only the psychiatrist whom the client talks to, we should still do it, because else the very important forensic evidence is lost. It's a little bit new for psychiatrists, but it's not difficult to do. And it's better to have a not so good picture than to have no picture at all. We see it in prison visits. It's also when people come freshly out of some situation of violence. We should also include it in primary steps in first interventions. Of course, when you do prison visits or similar things, you look also in tools when you find torture tools and similar things. When you have a mapping of the Secret Service detention centers in Syria, we are involved in that at the moment, so then we understand how this whole thing works. And it's not what we usually do in psychiatry, but we have to understand the overall image of what people experience and what the details of the experience are, and then how to put it into the forensic evidence, documentation and reporting, what we give to our lawyers, and they can take it up. So we do interviews usually in the Istanbul Protocol together, the basic interview. The person should not tell the story 3 times again. We try to do it one basic interview, what has happened, and then you do psychiatric and additional evaluation, medical additional evaluation that is confidential, where the lawyer should not be present. It's too shameful. But the basic thing we do together, and at the end it should also be again integrated. We frequently have that problem with the Istanbul Protocol, that you have a separate report, medical and psychiatric, but it should go together, because also when you have a mental health impairment because of torture, like a brain trauma, your reporting on what has happened and how your injuries came to pass can be confused and incorrect. And then the psychiatrist knows this is because of, and we can get a better result when we bring all aspects together. So I frequently go with people who do the physical examination. We went to Australia, different countries. All the thing that works best is to do it, the basic thing together, and at the end sit together again and do a joint report on the case, where we can put all information together. Also, for example, if the general practitioner, who is not the forensic expert, has documented and given to the patient a picture of the injury shortly after it had happened. In most countries like Syria or Egypt, you cannot go after you have been in prison, you have been tortured. You cannot go to the medical doctor and ask for treatment because of torture. It's too dangerous for the doctor. So, but you can do basic documentation and give it to the person. And later it can be used, and it's some sort of protection of evidence that is happening. We have the same in domestic violence. You should do it the same, because when you have a beating, then husband or wife, then the injuries vanish quickly. History of the IP, I will not speak too long about it, but the key point, this is the United Nations training standard. It's not a handbook of all impact aspects of torture. It's mainly a training standard what everyone, interdisciplinary, medical and lawyer people, have to know when they work with torture victims, to do a proper examination and later a proper investigation of torture. So it's supported by United Nations, by the World Medical Association, and we have to report on the progress to the World Medical Association of the implementation, World Psychiatric Association, and so on. So this is a really comprehensive standard that used in any case of alleged torture. It can be the suspicion is enough. If there's a suspicion this could be torture, then you should use starting all documentation and investigation based on the protocol. And it's not, of course, a standard handbook. The technology changes. When we have started, we had CT, CAT scan. Now we have PET scan, PET scan, and similar technology. We have bone scintigraphy to demonstrate non-fracture injuries in bones after beating. So the technology is changing, and this cannot be in the protocol, but we have to read the updated data. We also have a book nearly ready on that. Then you have the irrelevant international legal standards. That's one part in the Istanbul Protocol, because we also as medical doctors have to understand what is torture, how is legally defined, what standards exist, what way do we have to report on torture, what should be done. We have ethical codex also for medical professions. We are not permitted to participate in torture. That's quite clear also from the World Medical Association. But it also includes that we do not document torture. Not document suppressing information on torture is actually participation in torture based on the UN CAT. We are aware it can be very dangerous to do it. So there's a gray zone. But for example, in the UK, there was one case of a military doctor who was kicked from the doctor's list because he suppressed information on torture by British soldiers on Iraqi civilians. And he was kicked from the list of the medical profession, and that's the way it should be. Then we have general considerations for interviews. That's for lawyers and medical people. The lawyers have to learn how to do an interview in a way that is supporting the person and reconfirming his self-confidence, his dignity, and not overwhelming him or putting him in a distressful situation. We have the physical evidence and the psychological evidence. So it's quite a comprehensive interview, and you can download it. I think we send it also around, and you can read it. And most of the things are very clear if you are working in a specific profession, but some of the things are maybe new, and it's good to read up on it. We also have prepared a lot of materials on it to teach different things. For example, we have a 3-hour workshop on how to do the right pictures. If you want to do the right pictures of an injury, then there are some rules that you can use them for court. Like you start with an overview, you use a forensic ruler. It's not very complicated. But the result is that you get much better evidence for the court case later, and you should do it immediately, of course, because else traces vanish. For example, if you use motion scintigraphy to prove torture,
بولستيكا هنالك 8 سنوات، بعد 8 سنوات لا تستطيع أن تثبت أو تستخدم أي نتائج إيجابية من المحامين. يجب أن يفهموا أن هنالك الكثير من العوامل مثل الصدمة الذهنية، السكري أيضا، أن التقرير يمكن أن يكون غير واضح، مربك، متناقض، غير كامل، والمحامين يجب أن يدربوا على أن يعرفوا بأن هنالك هذا علامة على أن الشخص يكذب. هذا ما تعلمه، ولكن هذا شيء طبيعي لمن تعرض للتعذيب وليس كذب. وهذا مهم في المعايير ضد التعذيب، أن يكون هنالك عكس لهذا الفهم، بأنه لا يوجد شيء يشبه مثل العنف الذي لديه هذا الأثر الطويل الأمد على الصحة النفسية والاجتماعية. هو يدخل إلى حتى الجيل الثاني والثالث. إن لم توقف هذا العنف أو الصدمة فقد يؤدي إلى التأثير على أجيال قادمة. يجب أن يكون لديك الحق. هؤلاء المعتدين يجب أن يذهبوا إلى المحكمة. لا يمكن أن يتم عمل هذا مرة أخرى. هذا الشيء يجب ضمانه أيضا، لأن الناس لا يشعرون بالأمان. وأيضا الناحية الاجتماعية مهمة. في البيرو الضحايا أو الناجين كان يجب أن يشعروا بأنهم آمنين. لا نريد مال، لا نريد علاج نفسي، لا نريد أي شيء. يقولون نريد أن يكون لك رمز في السوق يظهر بأن أفراد عائلتنا الذين عذبوا وكانوا ضحايا كان هذا لهذا النظام الذي لم يكن شيء صحيح، لم يكونوا إرهابيين، هؤلاء كانوا أبرياء، ولا يجب أن يحدث هذا مرة أخرى. هذا ما أرادته العائلات، وهذا جزء من العلاج العميق النفسي. يجب أن نفكر بشكل شامل. يجب أن ننظر إلى تغييرات فيما يتعلق 5 إلى 6-11. عندما ننظر إلى هذه المعايير الجنائية لجمع الأدلة، نستخدم طرق مختلفة للتشخيص وجديدة. أعتقد أن الوقت قليل، ولكن أعتقد أنكم تعرفون هذه المعلومات مسبقا. يجب أن ننظر إلى الضحايا غير مباشرين. مثلا في محكمة يوبين لحقوق الإنسان أظهروا بأن أعطوا 30 مليون يورو للمعاناة النفسية للناجين لعائلاتهم الذين قتلوا في بلد واحد في أوروبا. لن أذكر اسم البلد، ولكن يمكن أن ترى هذا في المحاكم الأوروبية. والسبب أنه لم يكن هنالك أبدا قبل ذلك اعتراف بأن هؤلاء قد قتلوا. لم يتم إنهاء القضايا، لم يكن هنالك تحقيق، لكن الدولة التي قامت بهذا وهذا التعذيب وهؤلاء الضحايا الغير مباشرين تعانوا بشكل كبير، بحيث استطاعوا أن يطلبوا الحق العدالة من المجتمع الدولي. نعرف تأثير العنف وأنه ليس فقط الBDSD أو الضغط أو الصدمة، هنالك الكثير من الأشياء الأخرى التي لم تغطى في معيار الAPA. لا يمكن أن نقول أنه فقط الصدمة أو العنف تأثيره أعمق وأعقد، ولدينا هذا التوثيق الواسع ليس فقط الBDSD، وربما نحن نعرف النماذج. علينا أن ننظر إلى إلى حصانة هؤلاء، ولدينا أيضا معايير. الكثير من المرضى لديهم مشاكل في الدماغ أو أذى في الدماغ، مثلا بعد الصدمة هنالك هذه الموجة من الهواء المضغوط، ويظهر عليك هذه الأعراض الخاصة بالصدمة، ولكن يجب أن في هذه الحال أن يتم معالجة هذا الأمر بطريقة مختلفة عن مشاكل الصدمة. لذا نأتي بالناس إلى العدالة لكي نكون متفائلين بالمستقبل، كما هي صور فاتح المدرس التي أظهرتها في البداية. يجب أن نبدأ في البحث عن هذه العدالة الآن. إن لم تستطع الذهاب إلى محكمة دمشق اليوم وتأتي بشخص من داعش أو مكان آخر إلى العدالة، يمكن أن تبدأ بعمل التوثيق وتدفع باتجاه العدالة، لأن وضع الصحة النفسية أو الذهنية للناجين لن يكون جيدا. أنا أسلم الآن لزملائي من الفريق، آمل أنني على الوقت جيد. إذا كما ذكرت سيدة بتك، من منكم أولا؟ السفير، سعادة السفير لديه خبرة طويلة بدءا من البوسنة، وأيضا عملت أيضا في البوسنيا والكوسوفو، وأعرف ما هو أهمية هذا العمل في هذه المنطقة لتقديم أمان أكبر وإعادة بناء في البلد. وأعتقد في هذا الوضع نستطيع أن نتعلم الكثير من هذا المشروع هنا، وفي مشروع التوثيق جميعنا نتعاون هنا. شكرا بروفيسور فينسلو. بروفيسور أعطاكم لمحة عامة شاملة حول ما يمكن عمله أو فيما يتعلق بوضع سوريا، لأن هذا النزاع مستمر وطال، وهذا أمر غير مضيء في المجتمع، في تاريخ المجتمع الدولي. دعوني أتحدث عن بعض من المواضيع التي تحدث عنها بروفيسور. سأختصر لأنني هنا لأقدم تيري، وهو مركز تعزيز حقوق الإنسان الدولي. مدام أودرنت بتك وستعطي لمحة عن العمل والأمور العامة الخاصة بسوريا. الآن كما بروفيسور فينسلر قال، أنا كنت ممثل المجتمع الدولي في البوسنيا وهرزغوفينا لتنفيذ اتفاقية السلام والتي تسمى دايتون، والتي تم إنهاؤها من خلال القيادة أو قيام بها من خلال القيادة الأمريكية في 95. كنت أيضا المبعوث الخاص للأمم المتحدة للنزاع في كوسوفو في يوغوسلافيا السابقة، وكنت كبير المفاوضين في الاتحاد الأوروبي في محادثات السلام في كوسوفو وفي غامبويه وفي باريس في 1999. وبعد ذلك ذهبت إلى البوسنيا وهرزغوفينا، وهنالك تشابه بنيوي، وربما هناك دروس يمكن أن نتعلمها من هذين النزاعين واللذين في قلب أوروبا.
also religious sites. I ordered to rebuild all the destroyed mosques, the churches, monasteries, all the holy sites, because that was really an attack on the identity of the respective population and religious and ethnic groups. So more than 1,300 mosques were destroyed, and most of them are by now reconstructed. It took a very long time, but it was a very important thing, because that is really, if this country ever wants to reconcile with Bosnia and Herzegovina, ever wants to become a normal country again in the middle of Europe, of course there are certain preconditions. I've mentioned the return of refugees, and the right to return is stressed very much, and it was a huge and very comprehensive action taken by the international community in order to bring people back. Not everybody came back, of course, many settled in foreign lands, but those people, those citizens who wanted to return had the right, and I'm stressing the right to return, because this is the way to undo ethnic cleansing, which by the perpetrators of these heinous crimes it was intended to sort of create an ethnic, mono-ethnic entity, if I may say so. Now that was countered in a very platform, as well as the return of houses, the properties that citizens owned before the war. Now, a very important part of this, again, a very important and relevant symbolic gesture. So here you can see that on the one hand we tried to do the physical reconstruction of the country, yet on the other side, on the other hand, we also tried to set some standards in terms of preparing for eventual reconciliation and for to restore the honor of the people, I may say so. The third pillar that I have to mention was the establishment of a tribunal, ICTY, the International Criminal Tribunal for former Yugoslavia, which is still in place, still working. And the top brass of the politicians on all sides have been already sentenced, life imprisonment, many years in prison, and so on. So that these three elements, I believe, are very important. A very strong and very, so to speak, the physical reconstruction, the symbolic reconstruction, and then, in order to overcome impunity, the international criminal court for Yugoslavia in The Hague, by the way. Now, most of the cases have now already been this massive concerns and the massive attack on the human psyche, if I may say so, that we really tried to think in a very strategic, consciously strategic way how to assist the people who had to suffer so much in rebuilding the country and above all also their lives. Let me stop here, I think, and I would like to introduce my dear colleague, Ms. Uraleta Vitek, who is the founder of CERI, the Center for the Enforcement of Human Rights International. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Wolfgang, for the introduction of CERI and our work. Dear Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to attend this important conference and share with you some thoughts regarding the persecution of crimes against humanity and war crimes in Syria. I will quote a Syrian activist who told to Human Rights Watch, "Our disappointment is not from the regime. We know the regime. We survived the regime. Our disappointment is with the world. They use human rights bending the international law amid a climate of impunity. A range of groups have actively documented a violation of human rights and humanitarian law in Syria. Furthermore, in 2016, finally, the United Nations General Assembly created a mechanism tasked with analyzing and collecting evidence of serious crimes committed in Syria. The findings of this mechanism should be suitable for use in future proceedings before any court or tribunal that may have a mandate over these crimes. But for the most part, the wealth of information and materials available has not helped to advance international efforts to achieve justice for past and ongoing serious international crimes in the country. Syria is not a party to the International Criminal Court. Thus, unless Syria accepts the court's jurisdiction voluntarily, the court prosecutor needs the United Nations Security Council to refer the situation in Syria in order to open an investigation here. However, Russia and China issued a Security Council resolution that would have given the prosecutor such a mandate. Neither Syrian authorities nor other parties to the conflict have taken any steps to ensure credible accountability in Syria or abroad, fueling other atrocities. The avenues remain blocked. And here I'm talking about the principle of universal jurisdiction, which allows national prosecutors to pursue individuals believed to be responsible for certain grave international crimes such as torture, war crimes, and crimes against humanity, even though they were committed elsewhere and neither the accused nor the victims are nationals of the country. Such prosecutions are an increasingly important part of international efforts to hold perpetrators of atrocities accountable, provide justice to victims who have nowhere else to turn, deter future crimes, and help ensure that countries do not become safe havens for human rights abuses. On the other hand, the standard challenges associated with pursuing universal jurisdictions cases are compounded in the case of Syria by an ongoing conflict in which there is no access to crime scenes. As a result, authorities are compelled to turn elsewhere for information, including from Syrian asylum seekers and refugees, counterparts in other European countries, UN entities and non-governmental groups involved in documenting atrocities in Syria.